Hello.
Hello, Sanjit. I'm here.
Okay, fine. Sir, this screen sharing is enabled, right? For
Yes,
you?
yes, yes.
Okay.
I can share screen whenever you ask me to.
Okay. Okay, so very good afternoon to all the participants. For this session, we have with us Dr. Raj Matham as the guest speaker. Before he start his talk, let me take the privilege to introduce him. So Dr. Rakesh received BTech degree in computer science from JNTU, Hyderabad in 2005, MTech degree from Kakatiya University, Warangal in 2008, and PhD in computer science and engineering from IIT Patna in 2013. In 2014, he joined the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, IIIT Guwahati, as an assistant professor, where he is currently a member of Design and Innovation Center. He is a principal investigator of 2 funded research projects sponsored by SCRB and DST, Government of India. His research interests include wireless networks, IoT, network security, and fog and cloud computing. So with this small introduction, I hand over the session to Dr. Rakesh.
Thank you, Sanjit.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, you can share your screen, sir.
Thank you. Is my screen visible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Good afternoon, one and all, to all the participants. Today, I will be talking about security and privacy issues in Internet of Things. I will try to highlight different research challenges wherever I need to emphasize. And in general, I will talk about what are the different kinds of security issues that could be addressed and that needs to be addressed as well. So let me begin my presentation. This would be the brief outline of my talk today, where I will be talking about trusted IoT networks, and then I will be talking about over-the-air programming security with the use case of medical devices security, and then I will be talking about device security in fog computing, a little bit of introduction about denial of service attacks in Internet of Things. I will also highlight that. So this is an IoT ecosystem that you can see here. I think previous talks would have shown this ecosystem in some way or the other, but let me briefly tell you about the ecosystem where we have different kinds of devices, and we have various networking options as well. Is my video necessary? Should I turn off the video?
No, yeah, yes, please turn off.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yes.
The screen is still visible.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay. So this is the IoT ecosystem that I'm talking about, where the use case scenarios are multiple. Actually, you can use in public safety and security. That includes smart cities, smart homes, smart parking, smart grid, etc. And you have intelligent transportation. You have industries, application in industries, application in energy management, and application in health. So you have variety of devices that are part of our IoT ecosystem, starting from devices that have memory capacity in the form of KBs to MBs, and we also have devices that have that can function like a full-fledged computer as well. So the variety of devices is very vast. Then we have different networking options. Multiple options we have while setting up an IoT network. That also depends upon the type of application in which these IoT devices are used. Starting with most widely used is Wi-Fi, LTE, 5G, LoRa, long range networks, low power wireless wide area networks, right? And also includes specialized solutions like Bluetooth, industrial wireless, and industrial Ethernet. So these are all the different kinds of network options that we have. We have, again, we have several protocol options. Like if I talk about the application layer protocols, we have several different frameworks and protocols available. Like we have REST framework, we have constrained application protocol, it's called as COAP. We have message queuing telemetry transport protocol, like also called as MQTT, which is widely used for kind of publish subscribe models. Like that, we have different kinds of solutions. Some of the protocols are standardized and some of the protocols are proprietary, but still most of these protocols are widespread, are used in widespread applications. So it becomes important for us to understand the protocols as well. And then we have different kinds of platforms that enable these IoT, like we have fog platform, edge platform, GATT, we have cloud platform. So all these platforms are available for implementing this IoT ecosystem. Then we have once these devices generate data, then the data is used for various types of analytics as well. So all these things put together becomes an IoT ecosystem. As you can see, the applications are wide, the options we have are plenty. So that makes the security a very big challenge. So as the number of devices, the types of devices are more, security becomes critical, since the attack surface actually expands exponentially when we connect these billions of new and previously unconnected devices to the internet. When we connect these devices to the internet, the attack surface expands. There is the many reasons for expansion of this attack surface is first mainly due to the types of devices. You have variety of devices. When you take, if you compare it with a computer system, we have hardly 10 to 15 options of devices, architectures available, different kinds of operating systems. For example, in IoT, you have hundreds of different operating systems that are customized for specific applications. For example, if you take about a medical device, the operating system will be different. If you take a security camera, the operating system will be different. If you take a simple sensor that's functionality is just to collect data and relay it, the kind of hardware and software will be different. So because of the variety of hardware and software availability, the attack surface actually expands, and then security becomes crucial. So if we just look at the National Vulnerability Database, it shows that number of vulnerabilities related to hardware and the firmware have increased exponentially. So basically, simply connecting these devices is not going to be sufficient. These devices have to be authenticated and authorized to utilize the services and to provide the services. Basically, we need to enable end-to-end security to protect both the device and their associated data, software, interfaces, etc. So before I go ahead, I would like to say how security can be looked at. You can look at the security perspective from multiple angles. We can look at the security perspective from network point of view. You can look at security from application point of view. We can look at security from protocol point of view. We can also look at security from device and hardware point of view. So most of my talk will be focused on the device point of view, and I will also emphasize to a certain level on specific protocols and specific hardware techniques. So basically, coming back to the anatomy of IoT attacks, there is a complete shift in the way in which we are looking at IoT security. Previously, we had some kind of control over the cyber world because we knew what kind of devices are getting connected to the internet. Now we are looking at a complete, means we are looking at larger network than the internet itself. Internet itself is considered as large, right? Now, the number of devices that are connected is going into billions. So we are going to look at it from a network point of view and a system of systems point of view. So what happens is, like our regular computer network, even if one single device misbehaves, right, then the effect can be felt throughout the network. So either it can be like that. For example, a simple example is shutdown of an electrical grid via a home microwave oven. Microwave oven that is connected in your home to the Wi-Fi. It can also be used as an endpoint to launch different kinds of attacks. Right? For example, the classic example is the Mirai botnet that was launched in 2016. The attack came into attack happened in 2016, where some devices, millions of devices basically, were used, home devices that were connected to home networks. They were used to launch, these IoT devices were used, they were used to launch a distributed denial of service attack. And majority of these services, application services like PayPal, Reddit, Spotify, all these all these websites were rendered unusable. Basically, it launched it attacked the DNS server that resulted into significant damage. So that example simply shows the power of launching, or the simplicity in which such an attack can be launched. So some few questions that needs to be answered before we understand how this is different, how IoT security is different. So the basic questions that we need to understand is, what is so unique about IoT that it requires unique security knowledge and expertise? And how is it different from, say, our personal computers and servers? What devices qualify as purely or only IoT things, right? So these are the 2-3 important questions that needs to be understood for differentiating between traditional security and IoT security. So the first basic thing that I could identify was device life cycle. So IoT devices have much longer replacement cycle. So basically, once you set up an IoT device, it is expected to work for 5 to 10 years or even more. For example, if you take an MRI machine, that is behaving as an Internet of Things, that machine will have a long life cycle of 20 to 25 years as well. So the security objectives and robustness rules vary greatly. And if you compare it with traditional PCs, you have vast variety of devices and operating systems. There are multiple OS bootloaders, platform initialization software, and these softwares, so which makes it very difficult to develop a standardized solution process. So that is why this National Vulnerability Database, this snapshot shows how the attacks and firmware have rapidly increased. So if you look at here, this is the time when more and more devices were getting connected to the internet. As and when more and more devices were getting connected to the internet, the number of attacks on firmware level of devices has grown rapidly, right? So this is a snapshot till April 2019. So we can see that it is completely growing. So by the year 20, means now if we take the latest data, I guess it will be much higher. So this is the firmware level vulnerability trend chart, and this is hardware level vulnerability trend chart. So if you see that from 2016, you can observe that there is a rapid increase in number of security attacks that are targeting hardware components of the device. Why it becomes very important is, once the device itself is attacked, then the device can be used as a launching point for launching different kinds of attacks. So here, these are the different end-to-end components in an IoT ecosystem. And these interactions shows that what can be secured, what should be secured, and how to do that is what we are going to see. So you have an IoT device here, and that IoT device basically can operate independently, or and most generically it will be connected to a gateway. So this gateway, the IoT device interacts with the gateway through some kind of access and network, and usually you have cloud, or either you are directly connected to the cloud, or you can have a fog layer in between, and further it is connected to the cloud. So having a cloud platform basically simplifies the your management of devices, how to manage, how to connect, how to collect data. All these things are simplified, but also increases visibility of those IoT devices to the outside world, and that is why more and more security issues comes into picture. So we have an IoT device, we have an IoT gateway, we have an IoT application platform and cloud, and and ultimately there is an end user, IoT service user. So basically each component will have something like this: an application framework, and a connectivity framework, and a device platform. So this device platform basically is supposed to provide the basic security measures for that particular platform, either for a device, for a gateway, for the access and network infrastructure, for the cloud. Everywhere this anchored model shows that this is the component that provides the security infrastructure to that particular component. So these are the different interactions. The IoT device interacts with the gateway interacts through the access and network connectivity to the cloud, and the application layer, the IoT device directly interacts with the cloud, and the users can actually interact via the cloud for accessing different kinds of services. So we are trying to protect these different interactions on between different components to provide end-to-end security. Just let us look at different types of attacks that can be launched end-to-end. For example, on IoT applications, the types of attacks include all the known types of attacks, and also these IoT applications are vulnerable to zero-day exploits. Basically, that means these exploits were not known in prior, and they have just discovered these exploits. And at the device level and at the edge level, these can be used for launching distributed denial of service attacks, and attacks related to key, and attacks related to passwords. And on the network level, you can have some kind of passive attack like eavesdropping attacks, and man in the middle attacks, which have various variations like replay attack, etc. And also attacks related to keys. And on the data center and cloud, you have attacks like zero-day app exploit, ransomware, right? All the system security related attacks can also be are supposed to be addressed when you are talking from a cloud or data center point of view. So what is a typical data flow in an IoT ecosystem where there is a device, gateway, a application platform like IoT framework like a cloud, and there is a user. So these are the different layers or different components that you can consider. And if what is a typical data flow is like this: the device securely identifies the gateway or a cloud, assuming that there are certain security practices in place. The device has to securely identify itself with the gateway or the cloud. The device has interfaces to sensors and actuators. So the device basically does its functionality of collecting the data and controlling the sensors and controlling the actuators. So device itself may run some local analytics and optionally store some data that could be encrypted. So device usually, to maintain confidentiality and integrity, device usually signs these data and also encrypts optionally and send it to the gateway. The gateway basically has to authenticate, and the gateway itself can also run some analytics, and the gateway will further send it the data to the either the fog or the cloud. So the instances of fog or cloud actually are responsible for maintaining the data and providing security to the data. Then the cloud platform can run some analytics and optionally store this data in some kind of secure format. So this is how a typical data flow between data generation and data storage on the device to the cloud. So optionally these can vary depending upon the type of scenario and type of application that we are considering, but this is a generic steps. So these are the main IoT security challenges. So as I've already said, to summarize, very large attacks surface and widespread deployment. So widespread deployment basically removes or prevents complete control on the network. And the second main challenge is limited device resources. So these devices usually have limited resources in terms of power, that is energy, in terms of processing, in terms of memory, right? All these limitations basically play a major role in designing a solution. And secondly, we also do not have any types of standards and regulations. So lack of standards basically means that different vendors, different products, different proprietary protocols, and since there are no standards, whenever you try to deploy an IoT environment, you do not know how to verify the security of a particular system, right? So you basically go by brand values. So that is why lack of standards and regulations makes it very difficult for providing security in the IoT environment. And further, since these devices are basically commodity components, these devices are manufactured at a very low cost. So basically the competition is huge. So most of the manufacturers do not consider design as a top priority during deployment. So basically they want to sell the product. Like for example, if you want to buy a security camera, there are hundreds of options that you can get on Amazon, right? So you buy some camera, right, without by just looking at its features, etc., and then you set it up. So once you set it up, most of the times what happens is you will follow the default setup procedure that is given by the device manufacturer, right? So once you set it up, that device is sending out data and also able to receive data, right? So that device itself can become as a hub for launching different kinds of security attacks. So since security is not by default a top priority, these devices becomes much, securing of these devices becomes much more challenging. And lack of expertise is also a major challenge when it comes to the security, because basically these devices were not designed to be connected to the internet, right? Since now this concept of IoT has evolved rapidly, more and more devices are getting connected to the internet. For example, a refrigerator. Previously, it was unthought of for a refrigerator to connect to the internet. So the basic functionality of the device is to something else. Now you are trying to connect this device to the internet, right? So once that device is connected to the internet, it is no longer a refrigerator. It is a computing device which can be utilized to either for which can be utilized for comfort, convenience, and lot of other business perspectives, but the security perspective becomes as crucial as a computer that is connected to the internet. So that becomes a top challenge. So since these manufacturers do not have expertise, for example, a person who is a company who is manufacturing air conditioners do not have those security expertise to make the device secure enough to get connected to the internet. So this is a very big vulnerability and a very main challenge when it comes to designing of security solutions. And the next major important challenge is applying security updates. So most of the products that are that come into the market have been built rapidly. So the development life cycle is very less. Usually, typically, in the span of months to maximum 1 to 2 years. So since the product development is insecure and these products have not been tested completely, so most of the companies usually address any kind of drawbacks in the design through some kind of security updates. Like for example, our mobile phones, right, frequently keep on receiving updates. So those updates may be in terms of performance, to increase the performance, to fix any kind of bugs, and also security patches. So mostly these devices, and it is not only true for mobile devices or for IoT devices, it is also true for our computer systems as well. But the thing is, the development life cycle of a computer system usually is larger, right? For example, Microsoft does not release new version of Microsoft Windows OS every year, right? There is a definite life cycle. So that is not maintained when it comes to IoT devices. So that makes it much more challenging. And as I've already said, insecure development is one of the major challenge, and unclear liabilities. What is the impact of an attack is unclear, because there might be multiple reasons, and one of the reason is mainly because the vast number of scenarios that are possible using these devices makes securing these components much more challenging. and as apart from that, economics also favor weak IoT security. Means there is no advantage basically to wait and design a secure product, because the applications are much more wide, diverse. So economics usually favor weak IoT security. So what can we do? If you look at the very basic level, if you want to address security at a very basic level, what should be done? What are the basic points that should be secured, and what are the challenges in dealing with? So, right, the first and foremost thing is to develop some kind of trust among devices. How do we develop some kind of trust among devices? Since devices basically actually get connected, right? If a device is individual, there is no point of means the usage and the value of the device is much more low, right? So when it is connected to multiple devices, only then the cumulative value of that system grows. So how do we develop trust among devices? So basically in this figure, you can see that these are the trusted devices. When they are connecting with a device with root of trust, right, then such a connection is acceptable. Otherwise, connecting a device through a firewall, also firewall basically allows you to monitor any kind of illegitimate activity that is happening in the network, and then you can actually connect with such a device as well. So basically not accepting, if it does not fall in these two categories, so you should not basically connect to any kind of untrusted IoT device. So here the basic thing that I want to emphasize is how to develop this root of trust. So basically this root of trust is part of your device that is basis for enabling security. So it will contain some secure keys, secure key storage, and some secure cryptographic operations that are important capabilities that will enable a device to get connected to any other IoT device. So that we call it as root of trust. So root of trust basically is an hardened environment containing the manufacturer embedded attestation keys. So how do we develop that root of trust is what I will show you in the next few slides. So basically, attestation protocols allows you to connect to a network in a secure fashion. So basically, the device can initiate the trust negotiation protocol by sending some kind of information that allows the IoT device at the edge to verify whether that device is basically can be trusted or not, right? So since these IoT devices basically may be connected to multiple networks at the same time, the importance of this root of trust becomes much more important, mainly because if one device gets compromised, then it can impact multiple such networks, and then the effect of that such an attack can be much higher. So basically, this attestation provides the basic first order filter, or it can act as a first layer defense mechanism that prevents you from connecting to untrusted IoT devices. So what is a root of trust? So a root of trust basically consists of identity and cryptographic keys rooted in the hardware of a device. So basically these are embedded in the hardware of a device. So it establishes a unique, immutable and unclonable identity to authorize a device to the network. So what basically it prevents is it prevents the device from counterfeiting, cloning of the device, and also reverse engineering the device, right? So the root of trust basically provides these three functionalities. It acts as a unique key, immutable, you cannot mutate it, and it cannot, the device cannot be cloned also, right? So that basically provides as an anchor point for the chain of trust, so that all critical security issues can be addressed through this root of trust for the entire life cycle of a device. So basically it acts as a digital footprint or digital fingerprint for a semiconductor device based on physical variations inherent to every chip. So whenever a chip is manufactured, so the algorithm to generate these keys is present in the root of trust, is present in the memory of the device, so that each device can generate its own root of trust independently, and these keys also need not be stored in the memory of the device. So it basically prevents counterfeiting the device. Means you cannot, since these devices are operate in an open environment, basically it is not possible to provide physical protection to these devices. Since it is not possible, so one possible way of protecting these devices is developing efficient root of trust mechanisms. So the widely used mechanism to develop this root of trust is using physical unclonable functions. So developing of root of trust is one of the key research issue that is recently has been taken up to address security issues at the device level point of view. So using hardware characteristics of the hardware and semiconductor characteristics, physical unclonable functions can develop this root of trust that will enable the device to basically make use of the semiconductor characteristics on the device itself to develop the basic security keys like attestation key that allows a device to very authenticate with another device. So this is how a root of trust architecture looks like. The entire functionality is basically divided into the basic functionality, or also called as other functionality. That is, for example, a security camera. If you take it, its basic functionality is something else, right? Its basic functionality is to capture video, stream video, and send it to some point, right? That is a basic functionality. But such a device, every such device should have this trusted execution environment. The trusted execution environment basically has multiple components: secure storage, authentication keys, encryption keys, attestation keys, and functionalities that can capture these, means that enable carrying out these functionalities. So the keys are necessary to carry out this particular functionality. So basically the trusted computing base and trusted execution environment basically cooperate to ensure that the embedded security functionality can be accessed within that trusted execution environment without having any kind of significant security risks. So the examples of this trusted execution environment are ARM Trust Zone, right? ARM-based products usually have this functionality called as ARM Trust Zone, Intel SGX, etc. These are examples of root of trust on the devices. So more and more devices are coming up with this root of trust concept, and developing this root of trust is itself a challenge. So depending upon the device characteristics, I mean, optimizations of these to achieve this functionality is itself a research challenge. So attestation key basically may contain an asymmetric key supplied with the device manufacturer that establish device origin authenticity. And attestation functionality is a trusted code basically that implements the attestation and attestation verification logic, how the attestation has to be done, etc. is part of this attestation functionality. Encryption keys can be symmetric, can be asymmetric, basically used to protect device to device and device to human interactions that may occur in the context of device to that may occur in the natural course of action. And further, we have secure communications. So again, different options are available. Basically, they need to provide support for key management. So it is better to use some existing mechanisms like Kerberos or public key infrastructure. Further, we have secure storage, which becomes much more crucial because these devices store and generate a lot of data, right? So it is important to have secure storage, basically because it should provide the ability to store keys, integrity measurements, whitelist settings, contextual information, etc. in a secure fashion, so that the entire trusted execution environment can behave correctly. And also context awareness functionality is also part of a trusted execution environment, where contextual information like time, location, biometrics, etc. should be used to collect security relevant context. So all these things put together, you are calling it as trusted execution environment. And this trusted execution environment should also enable that whenever these devices are needed to be updated, they should be able to update securely. Now, since we have different variations that are available for security, cryptographic keys that are cryptographic mechanism that can be used. The major thing that we need to look at is whether what is the purpose of the device, because it has a significant impact on what kind of memory requirements are needed, what kind of specific requirements needs to be fulfilled to handle such scenarios. For example, if you take in the case of symmetric pre-shared secrets, if you take symmetric pre-shared secrets, there is no need for hardware acceleration. But if you take example of raw public or private keys, since these operations needs to be done multiple times, some kind of hardware acceleration is needed. And even if you take certified public or private keys, hardware acceleration is necessary. Memory size can be implemented for with symmetric keys with a small memory footprint. But if you take the case of certified public and private keys, you need large memory footprint. So the same security requirement that you apply for a air conditioner and a or an MRI machine, right, might be different. So memory size requirements are different based on the cryptographic mechanism that you use. For symmetric keys, the code size is very small, but for asymmetric and asymmetric raw and certified keys, code size is usually large. Message size is similarly small, medium, and large. Persistent storage size is small to medium, depends on the network size. Okay, so because the network size increases means the number of interactions also increase. So the storage is necessary, right, for these two. Also, the storage requirement is not so high. If you take the example of symmetric keys, it does not preserve perfect forward secrecy, but both asymmetric and symmetric keys, asymmetric raw and certified keys, both preserve perfect forward secrecy, right? So perfect forward secrecy is nothing but even if a particular key is exposed, if you take the case of a symmetric key, the key is exposed, all the data that has been generated is exposed. But in asymmetric cases, usually these keys are refreshed. So whenever, even if the key is exposed, then only a small content of the data is exposed. So basically, these two maintain perfect forward secrecy. So this is about a device that boots up and tries to establish secure relations, right? So basic functionality is authentication functionality. How that authentication functionality should be provided, should be built onto the device. So simple authentication mechanisms are not sufficient that we have been designing for long, right? So these devices, these IoT devices require, apart from certain authentication functionality, it has to be in the form of a complete trusted environment. So usage of public physically unclonable functions is one of the way to solve that problem. The next major challenge that these devices face is updation of these devices. Since it is not possible to design a device once and the device will function perfectly, usually that does not happen, since this is a continuous process, right? So irrespective of the care taken during the development phase, most of these IoT devices need to be reprogrammed over the air, right? They have to be reprogrammed over the air. New features need to be added, software bugs or security vulnerabilities are resolved, and applications can be repurposed. Basically, that means they can be recalibrated. So, but it has limitations, like since these devices might be in locations where it is not possible to access, at a remote place in an industry or somewhere under the ground, right? So it is not possible to gain physical access to the device. And also they are resource constrained. So basically resource constraint means you cannot simply update the entire OS by incorporating new OS image onto the device, right? Basically it does not have so much memory at all, right? So though it is not possible for updating those devices in traditional way. And basically the scale is very important, since the devices are in a large scale and there is huge heterogeneity among devices. A single one unique solution for all these problems is not going to fit, right? So basically we need to consider these possible design constraints while designing an efficient and reliable pipeline for this over-the-air programming. Available storage, as I already said, is too restricted to accommodate multiple application images. The device cannot incorporate multiple application images. How traditionally it is used to be done is, traditionally means this before before IoT came into picture, there were these cyber physical systems that were still existing, like SCADA systems, etc. Right? Usually, how they used to be updated is traditionally maintenance personnel used to go through physically, and then they used to access the device via some kind of serial port or other hardwired back channel to basically update these devices. These kind of solutions no longer will work because it is not scalable and also requires a vast amount of time. Especially during security breaches, the security vulnerabilities are identified, then the patches needs to be applied as soon as possible, right? So sometimes these devices are inaccessible. So basically, this traditional way of updating will not work. Wireless mechanisms have been developed, but they also have certain restrictions, right? For example, in the early 2000s, how this over-the-air programming was carried out was the firmware image was actually built on the base station, and that base station usually used to transmit in its entirety to the neighboring nodes over a radio channel, right? So once the device had fully received the update, it basically rebooted, and the bootloader basically overload the entire contents of the internal flash memory, right? So with the new image, and then started to work as a new device altogether, right? But this kind of mechanism is restrictive because it works only for the one hop of the wireless channel. So this, because the entire image is transferred, it is not possible. So, but we have seen that IoT networks can operate in a multi-hop fashion. So there is a need for better and secure over-the-air programming techniques. And also, these devices may frequently need updates. So transmitting the entire firmware each time a new update is released has become obsolete. Means there is we'll no longer do that, and we usually follow incremental programming schemes. So these incremental programming schemes basically involves sending some specific commands to the nodes and instructing them how to construct the new firmware with the existing firmware, right? So basically, the updates for the update process to be fast and quick. So basically, what we are trying to do is we are just trying to send some instructions to the device. So that instructions, based on those instructions, the device can actually reconstruct the entire firmware by marking those changes and using those instructions. So this is how an updation process looks like. There is a new firmware source and there is an old firmware source. Basically, there is an algorithm to improve the firmware similarity. A new firmware image is generated, and the differencing algorithm takes new firmware image and the old firmware image and generates a delta. This delta is basically disseminated, and this delta is used for updating the application. So new firmware is updated only using this delta. So the delta is disseminated in the network utilizing the multi-hop protocol in order to reach all the nodes. So when I say multi-hop protocol, basically that means your routing protocol. So now we are looking at how these updates are supposed to be delivered to different devices. Since we are trying to update it, these updates needs to be disseminated properly. So since these updates have to be disseminated, so multiple nodes are involved in this update process. So if we do not consider security of this updation process, major challenge is if any of the compromised or malfunctioning device generates any malicious instructions, then the entire updation process will be at risk, and basically you are exposing the entire network of devices to this malicious software, right? So most of the protocols that have been designed for this environment aim at update images. Update image basically reaches lot of nodes in as little time as possible, right? So the focus was basically on making sure that the updates are received by all the devices, right? So basically they use a propagation based approach, right? So where each node just needs to receive a part of the update and forwards it to the neighbors. So this technique basically ensures that the updation process is fast, but it raises very serious security concerns. So if a node does not validate the authenticity of these updates, so they will result into installation of faulty or malicious firmware. So basically, they can be completely compromised. So how to make sure that this updation process is smooth? And since we are using multi-hop wireless communication, due to the broadcast nature of this wireless medium, right, these kinds of all attacks are possible. So these attacks usually we study from a routing point of view. Now we are actually looking at it from a network, device update point of view, right? So in external attacks, the attacker can basically inject forged packets, launch replay attacks, impersonate nodes, and launch denial of service attacks, right? In insider attacks, the attacker can actually intercept sensitive information, right? Drop packets and inject false data, right? All these attacks that were possible while routing of information are also possible when we are trying to launch, when we are trying to update the devices, right? I am hoping that everybody knows these attacks, right? I mean, minimal knowledge, I am assuming. So basically the major challenge here, the major research challenge here is how to design a fast over the air secure programming scheme, over the air programming scheme that will allow you to distribute these updates in a secure and faster way, right? That will enable that the device, I mean, the updates are authentic and the integrity of the message updation is intact, right? So this can also be one of the main research challenge while addressing the IoT security. These are some of the secure protocols that are available. I am just highlighting only few of them. Mainly, you can see that these are published in 17, 18, 19, and there are other protocols as well. So this is a very relevant research issue even today. So basically, if this can be considered as one of the research challenge while addressing IoT security issues, right? So you can see that this selective and secure OTAP protocol basically does not provide confidentiality, but provides integrity and authenticity. It is based on SHA-1 and ECC, and it aims to protect against denial of service attacks, replay attacks, etc. Right? So different protocols are there. There are certain platforms that also provide this over-the-air programming for IoT devices, like Vendor, ARM, Pillion, Particle, AWS IoT, Free RTOS, right? These platforms basically enable you to update the devices in a secure manner. But still, there is no standard mechanism. So basically, these platforms comes with their own limitations. Since the security is very vast, I will take the use case of medical devices and show how simple violations or simple scenarios can result into different kinds of security breaches. So this, just I would like to highlight this. This Minimed is an is a device basically that is used to control the flow of insulin in in patients. So here the attack was easily feasible because basically if you just read this, if you can see this, the attacker could send radio frequency signals to a nearby insulin pump and change settings of the device, basically impacting the flow of insulin. So basically you can control the flow of insulin to the patient by modifying the RF signals, right? So the attacker has to be closer to the device, in the close vicinity. That means any person who who visits the hospital for some reason, right, can come in contact with such devices which are open in nature, and you can just basically control these devices, right? So these, if you see this in the right, you have a table of devices. All versions of software were vulnerable to this attack, right? And for these specific devices, only if the software version and lower versions were actually vulnerable to these attacks, right? So this clearly shows that the current ecosystem of devices is very much vulnerable, and so there is a need for addressing a holistic solution for these kind of attacks, right? So importing from IoT devices, medical devices also have the same challenges, and it can be slightly more when compared to typical IoT environment. So basically, these devices are used in critical functionalities, right? So that is why it becomes much more challenging. Replication, that means these devices are mass produced, and we have several kinds of security assumptions, right? Patching limitations, which are common. Long life cycle, I've already said. So these devices usually have much more longer life cycle than any other platform, any other ecosystem, right? Usually 10, 15, 20 years. And sometimes these devices are also deployed outside the enterprise security parameters. So that is why it becomes challenging, right? So these are the security features: secure boot, secure code updates, data security, authentication, secure communication, protection against cyber attacks, right? All these are common. These are common for any kind of devices, right? Now let me show you about a typical of an architecture of an healthcare network looks like, right? So if you look here, you have different kinds of devices available. So you have some IoT devices that are specific for medicine, right? And some devices like laptops, etc. Right? These are IT technology. These relate to, these do not fall under IoT, but these fall under information technology. There are certain devices like HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning solutions, right? Security cameras, right? So these belong to operational technology, right? Multiple technologies are coming together for providing something like an smart healthcare, right? Now, what are the challenges here? The main challenges here is the integration of different kinds of technologies like information technology, medical things, operational technology, IoT, etc. Right? So basically, the diversity of devices is the most important challenge here. Now let us look at this scenario and what kind of security threats can exist, right? For example, external threats, internal threats, right? External threats, internal threats, and there are different kinds of threats due to different kinds of features of these systems. Like for example, if you take the majority of these devices may have default passwords, right? So targeting any of such devices with default passwords can result into an full-fledged security threat. So external threats usually are coming from outside of the network that results in compromising, that mainly result due to compromising of one of the devices within the network and then launching an attack, right? And then later we have internal threats. Usually these medical devices are provided support through the vendors using some kind of back channel, right? Either a VPN connection exists to a MRI machine or an X-ray machine, and usually these channels are used to log into the machine and to uh, to update any kind of feature or to handle any kind of bugs in the system. So these channels can also be utilized for launching any kind of internal threats. Now, another main important reason is the use of default passwords and legacy systems, right? I'll show you how different kinds of legacy systems will result into launching a lot of can become basis of multiple attacks. Mainly when we consider legacy systems, there are a lot of well-known threats and attacks that are documented. So if you do not, if the systems are still operating on the same legacy software, it becomes easier, and those devices become sources of launching different kinds of attacks. So how to defend these challenges? Basically, to defend these kind of challenges, the major solutions are in three. You can divide the solutions in three parts. Basically, first is to identify and detect the vulnerabilities and apply proper segmentation, network segmentation, and also to scan the ongoing network activity in any kind of such a large huge network, right? Just let us look at this statistics that was conducted by Forescout Research, right? For the year 2019 and 2020. So they have scanned about million devices, and in 2019 only 29% of the devices used operating system, Windows version of operating system that has support for more than 1 year, right? So when in 2020 it has increased to 68%, so that is a good thing. So the bad means devices that are running Windows OS with extended support updates, right? So basically you have to pay for this kind of update. So in 2019 it was 71%, now it is 32%. So that means it has improved. So still, that means the ugly means these devices are running unsupported versions of operating system, right? So now absolute Windows operating systems like Windows XP, Windows Server, etc., right? So they are running these kind of systems. So imagine how these devices means how much vulnerable these devices are, and how easily it can be possible to launch any kind of attack. And the next is legacy systems. Legacy systems basically are those systems which have been in operation for very long, and either they cannot be updated, right, for a reason, or you cannot afford to update, right? You cannot afford to update. There can be multiple, it can be both, right? So that also becomes a major source of attack. So the major challenge now here is, since you have variety of devices in the network segmentation becomes very crucial. So the two things that we need to understand is, since you have different varieties of devices, the attack surface actually increases. So since the attack surface is has increased, the one of the major solution for protecting against these kind of attacks is network segmentation. So what these two questions needs to be answered: what is the mix of information technology, medical technology, and how these devices needs to be put together, combined together, and the devices, because it is not possible, it is practically not possible to make sure that all these devices are up to date. So the one of the possible solution is segmentation. So just look at, let us focus on the question why segmentation is important. If you look at this scenario, right, here you have a different types of devices. You have tablets, smartphone, computer, right? You have an infusion pump, you have barcode scanner and a smartwatch, right? So these products belong to different classes of devices, right? Ideally, these IT devices should not be connecting to the same access point as these sensitive devices like infusion pump or smartwatch or a barcode scanner, right? Because each device will have different kind of network access privileges. So the access to the network should be restricted. So the challenge here becomes is how to identify the device. So basically, whenever this device is connecting to the access point, right, there has to be automatic ways to detect the type of device, and apply appropriate solutions to that. Provide appropriate access privileges to the device. So one of the major research challenge here is to identify the type of device itself, right? So identifying the type of device becomes very important because it has to be an automated process. It cannot be a manual process that I will assign each device one identity, and based on that identity, I will connect to that device. Like for example, because there can be a guest who is coming into the hospital, right? Now he is connecting to the device, means he is accessing the local network, right? Now for the device, he has to provide, means the access privileges have to be provided based on the functionality of device. How do I answer this? Means how do I find out what is the type of device that is getting corrected, right? So device identification is a major research challenge, also called as device fingerprinting. So there are various mechanisms that are currently explored for device fingerprinting. So that can be a major research challenge. Identifying of devices, usage of learning algorithms, right, can be one of the possible solution to identify a device based on the network traffic that it is generating, right? The network traffic that a device is generating can be used as a metric to identify a device and provide privileges to the device. So this is another example of a faulty network segmentation, where you see that different types of devices are connected to the network switch, right? In this case, this clock is connected to the switch, which should not be part of it, right? Because since that device is basically a resource constrained small device, so it does not have all possible security features. So it is very difficult. It is very difficult to protect the clock itself, right? So it is much easier to filter the device and apply suitable security policies based on identification of a device. So the next possible reason for different types of attacks is devices with default passwords, right? Most of the times the attacks are possible mainly because lack of proper knowledge, right? So we can safely say that it is not possible for all the users to be completely aware of what they are, what they are achieving, means what they're trying to run, because the customer's main point of view is utility rather than the security, right? So devices with default passwords is one of the widely exploited attack vector to launch different kinds of attacks. So how do we address such a challenge? Is you need to develop some kind of configuration management solution that will scan, that will actually keep a track of the devices that are connected, what are the current configurations of those devices. So based on the configurations of those devices, then you can actually divide those devices into multiple segments, right? So that is another particular research challenge that needs to be addressed, is how to keep track of configurations of the current configurations of the device, so that you can actually maintain different lists in the entire network. So if you look at it, this is OWASP top 10 IoT 2018. I think maybe 2021 might be available, but this is top 10 2018 list of security vulnerabilities for IoT environment. If you see that in 2014, insecure web interface was a top security vulnerability, but in 2018, big guessable or hard-coded passwords is the top top security vulnerability, right? The OWASP, I guess you have heard about OWASP, right? Open Web Access, right? So this list, these it publishes the security vulnerabilities. Means for every 4 years, I guess, for every 4 years, what are the different types of vulnerabilities are there currently, right? So if you see that insecure web interface, insufficient authentication or authorization, right? Privacy concerns, right? These are the different security attacks. Here, if you see that they have changed, right? Some have changed, some have come up, some have come down, right? So weak, guessable, and hard-coded passwords is one of the major security threat. So insecure protocols is one of the other main attack vector that can be exploited by attackers. So in the context of medical devices, I will take the example of one of the widely used medical device protocol that is called as HL7. HL7, health level 7, basically it is called as. This is the widely used data exchange protocol for medical networks. So this is basically like an application layer protocol, similar to our HTTP. HL7 also works at the application level. If you take OSI architecture as a benchmark, so you can call it as an application level protocol. So basically, it is used to exchange data between patient and other components, other medical devices. Other protocols that are existing is for example DICOM, which is digital imaging and communication in medicine. It is used for imaging basically. So it defines both the format of storing medical images and also communication protocols used to exchange them, right? All these protocols will operate in open environment, means they do not have any kind of security in place. So whenever they operate without any kind of security. So basically HL7 can be designed to operate with any of the transport layer security protocols like TSL, right? But without knowledge, even these TSL protocols also have certain security vulnerabilities. So it is very important to keep that in mind, right? So, and also one of the major challenge for medical devices is most of the devices have proprietary protocols. Since they are proprietary protocols, when they are interacting with outside environment, like for example, an HTTP server, right, or an FTP server, right? So basically, these devices become vulnerable. Like for example, here I am showing you the operation of POC protocol, where this is a snapshot of data that has been gathered. You see that the name, date of birth, and gender, the type of test that is carried out, right? And what are the readings? All those values are basically you can observe, right? So this is nothing but an insecure version of the protocol. So it is very important to design mechanisms to make sure that these devices still can keep working with this existing protocols. So these are some of the known attacks on medical devices. For example, orange worm using the Quampirs malware has infected a lot of X-ray and MRI machines, right? So the attack vector that was considered was phishing emails and messages, right? And there are several kinds of ransomware attacks that have happened. For example, this WannaCry attack in 2017, right, has costed UK's National Health Service approximately $100 billion. So a more recent example is this Fresenius. This was the attack that happened in the middle of pandemic, right? So this is the largest private hospital operator in Europe, and they were hit with the ransomware. So this basically these attacks simply shows that how vulnerable these devices are. These are just media reports that we got, basically depending upon the attack. I mean, large scale attacks, but there are several kinds of attacks that are targeting the integrity of data itself, right? So integrity of the data means that data values are changed, right? So by disrupting the normal behavior of these devices, you can cause several kind of damages to the network. So as I have already shown, a simple POC protocol can be modified by, like, let us say, an attacker who has become part of the network, right? He can become part of the network very easily by just plugging in or connecting to any of the Wi-Fi access point, right? That is present in a hospital infrastructure, right? These attacks can be very easily launched. So how to defend these attacks, I have already specified, but if you put together, basically the attacks can be addressed by first basic step is to identifying and isolating the devices, right? So this is a first basic step that needs to be designed for addressing devices when it comes to anything. It is not just restricted to medical devices. It is restricted to it means it can be applied to any of the IoT applications. So basically to increase the visibility of the devices. And the next solution that needs to be applied is segmenting flat networks, means not to put all the devices on the same network with the same kind of access privileges. You need to segment networks with proper security policies in place. And the next part is the network security aspect, that is securing the communications between devices. And over and top of that, I mean, security or automation is definitely needed because the number of devices are much huge. So keeping track of configurations of the devices is a challenge, right? So all these 3-4 possible solutions put together can act as a basic security requirements of the IoT environment and medical devices in particular. Okay, so let me wrap up quickly. Now we have seen from a device perspective, and we have seen that how these devices are vulnerable and what could be done to protect these devices. Now let us go a little bit higher, and once the data is generated by these devices, how this data is still vulnerable and what kind of vulnerabilities or challenges needs to be addressed when the data is coming out of, means when the data has originated from these devices. So once this data is originated from these devices, either that data has to go to the cloud, or the data can be operated at the edge, or also called as fog. Right now, since the fog basically what it does is it provides low latency communication, means all the time these devices getting connected to the data center or cloud may not be possible and may not be feasible as well, or may not be cost effective. So this fog computing solution has come into picture, right? But which has much higher advantages, means actually it complements the cloud, means along with the cloud, the fog network actually brings in several better functionalities to the network, but it also has some security challenges. Like for example, let us look at it only from the question's point of view, means what kind of security issues might arise and what could be the solution, right? To access the services of a fog network, right, means for example a device has to send a device send or use the services of a fog layer, it has to become part of the network, right? How it can do, it can first step again it comes is authenticating itself to the fog, right? Now the formidable challenge here is, as the devices are constrained and mobile, how many times this authentication has to happen, right? Because each time whenever I send a data, I cannot ask for authentication, right? This is not practically feasible, and it is not even cost effective, right? So the major research challenge that research question that needs to be addressed is, can authentication be offered as a service, right? So this is a research question that needs to be answered. So there is no unique answer to it right now, but that can be something thought of to address as a research challenge, right? The next is authentication basically establishes itself as a right set of relations, means authentication allows you to uh, allows you to authenticate yourself to the device with which you are interacting, right? But should these authentication mandated for every interaction? Because there are two sides to it. If you do not mandate authentication at every step, what will happen is these devices are operating at operating in an open environment. So the time gap between this means authentication at the time 1 T1 and authentication at time 2, in between these time the device itself may be compromised, right? So there has to be some kind of trust model that will allow the device not to enforce the complete authentication, but to have some kind of low overhead mechanism that will allow you to verify the trust put on that device, right? So here the another research question that could be answered is, can you categorize services to increase safety? Means depending upon the type of service, right, the type of security that you are enforcing should be managed. Means if you are accessing a service which is of very little importance, then you are not mandating the device to authenticate itself, right? So basically you are ready to pay the damage even if the device is compromised, right? So basically, can such a model be built to develop trust relations among devices, right? So that is another research challenge that can be pursued. And the next research challenge is how to lower the message overhead to handle dynamic leaves and joins, right? Because the devices itself can be mobile, right? So how to enforce that devices incur very less overhead, right? This is also one of the major research challenge that can be pursued, right? And sometimes, and most importantly, it becomes important because the device, the end device itself may not be aware of where the data is being stored, right? The data is generated, but where the data is being stored might not, or where the data is being processed and handled might not be known to the end device. when it is not known to the end device, then implementing secure communication becomes much more challenging. Apart from the security related issues, there are also privacy related issues, because these devices actually operate closer to the edge devices, right? When they are operating closer to the edge devices, it is very easy to understand the location of the device. So it is very important to provide location privacy. So it is a very important challenge that can be addressed, especially when you are dealing with health related information or personal related information, right? So the leakage of this data is very much feasible. So, and there are various channels through which this leakage of data can happen. So it is one of the other main research challenge that can be pursued. All these things put together, if you look at this figure, this is a complete picture of attacks that are possible, or security threats that are possible in an fog computing environment. The last topic that I would like to touch upon is denial of service attacks. So as soon as the attack surface expands, the most of the attackers are interested in launching different kinds of denial of service attacks, because that is where the entire money is. The attack, the cyber security is driven by the amount of money that is spent and amount of money that could be generated, right? So since the entire money is there in this high level of attacks, and as I've already shown that these attacks are very simple to launch. So this denial of service becomes much more challenging, right? Here, this is an attack scenario. First, basically you scan the ports, right? Once you scan the ports, then you scan for the ports that are open, right? Access the IoT device, right? Then code and command injections. Once you inject these code and commands, then you obtain administrative privileges, right? And then you can connect the device to a command and control center to download some kind of harmful script onto the device, right? Then spread through the device to other vulnerable devices, and then the attacker controls the botnet from the command and control center, right? Now this is a typical attack scenario that is applicable even for a computer network as well. But why it becomes much easier in IoT environment is because of this. So I will show you that you can actually scan for devices that are present on the internet, and scan for devices, scan for the type of device, what are the types of ports that are available on the device, right? Which is technically very feasible with the help of these tools like Shodan, right? So basically Shodan is nothing but a search engine for internet connected devices. So if you can use it for multiple purposes, right? I am only showing it in the perspective of security. I'm showing it, right? Basically you can search for devices that are connected to the internet. So once you search for the devices, you can find out the type of device, what are the type of ports that are present on the device that are open, right? You can just scan through all these things using some tool like Shodan, right? If you want to find the control servers of malware, right, that could be done through this, right? Maybe a new vulnerability came out and you want to see how many hosts it could affect, right? That can be done using this tool, right? So basically what Shodan does is it searches for every available port on the internet. So it is going around searching for every possible IP address and every possible port address, trying to identify whether it is open and available. So it can basically recognize the different devices that are connected to the internet. So you can find a vast array of devices on the internet. And what's scary about it is most of these devices use default passwords on the device, right? Most of the times, even with proper knowledge. Also, is most of the users, when it comes to setting up of these devices, they use default passwords for the device, right? So this is a snapshot that I took, right? For example, you see that these are the ports that are open: 80, 1723, 2008 to 91. 80 is the HTTP port, right? This port is open. So basically, I can send any kind of HTTP request on this port, and then I can actually use a commercial exploit to send a malware onto the device, and then I can launch an attack, right? So denial of service attacks, right, is very real. I mean, it it can uh, result into a tremendous damage to the network. And one thing that I would like to say here is it is not possible for it is not practically possible to protect against all these types of attacks, right? So it is inherently, it is the only possible solution is how to identify and defend our own network against these type of attacks. So all the research has to be done in that direction. The research has to be targeted towards how to identify, and let us say if I take the example of denial of service, how to identify such an attack, right? So basic steps I have already said. So you can apply or build on those devices, on those steps to protect a particular network on your own basis, right? So these, to summarize, IoT devices are basically constructed from cheap and generic hardware components, right? Device chips and firmware typically contain security vulnerabilities, which are not effectively baked in. Therefore, it is difficult for owners and operators to identify. Difficult for owners and operators to trace, right? So wireless issue of firmware and software updates are still at a rudimentary stage, right? And it is very difficult to upgrade or patch, right? With the always on, always online means constantly bombarded with traffic that can also include malware payloads, right? So these 3-4 particular properties of IoT devices makes it much more vulnerable, right? So as I've said, the first basic step is to develop a root of trust for these devices. So then developing a secure updation process for these devices, developing a secure configuration and verifying this configuration on these devices, right? These are the different steps that could be, that means these challenges needs to be solved to make sure that you protect, means that network setup is protected against certain types of attacks, right? Because it is not possible for protecting all the devices in general, right? Which, for example, our computer systems have evolved over a period of time, and now every device is having some kind of security feature in place, right? Even though even today we cannot say that the entire computer ecosystem is completely safe, but still in a much better stage when compared to the IoT ecosystem, right? So these are the basic steps that needs to be addressed. These are the research challenges that needs to be addressed to protect against different kinds of security threats. So with this, I am going to stop. These are the different important references that I have taken for preparing this presentation. Thank you so much. Now I would like to take any questions if you have. There is still 5-10 minutes.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for a nice talk, for highlighting different research challenges in resource constrained devices and as well as in the medical domain. So, sir, I have one question. Like, whenever we implement these security solutions on medical devices, so how can we do it? I mean, practically, these vendors are allowing us to do.
I mean, if you talk about the device, basically the thing that we need to look at is what is the hardware based on which that device is built. So we have to specifically target those hardware components itself. We can definitely experiment on the type of device, but mostly those are proprietary solutions. Still, no standard mechanism is there, right? So what becomes is, I mean, either you develop a security solution that will uh, apply on top of these devices, and you will enforce this. Like for example, I have said that identification of a device, based on identifying the device, you are applying the property, right? So this particular uh, mechanism can be implemented without worrying about what is the type of device.
Yes, yes. So just like, sir, what I was thinking, like we are wearing this biometric fitness tracker.
Yes.
So they are collecting, like suppose this location information. Sometimes it is not required.
Yes.
So yeah, so those kind of solutions can we implement on them? So that's what I asked.
We can, but I don't think we will be able to access that device in. I mean,
Yeah,
we can only highlight, but it becomes difficult to like even prove and also implement a solution for that.
yes, yes.
So the only means, since we are talking from a research perspective, we can in fact try to avoid it, right? Try to avoid leakage of such information.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Yeah. Any other participants? Any questions? Anyone? You can write in the chat box also.
I guess it has been a long
Yeah.
session. So
yes. You spoke so many things, like starting from the research issues in IoT devices, then discussing the challenges, then coming to a use cases in medical devices, then DOS attack. Lot of things you covered.
So yes. So yeah, they must be tired as well. It is already 4 o'clock almost.
Okay, anybody has any question, then you can ask, or we will end this session. You spoke about HL7. Sir, somebody asking what is
Yes, you spoke about
HL7,
What,
yeah.
what is the current version? I think HL7 is the current version.
Okay. Yeah, it is the current version. Okay. Or is that the okay?
It
Fine.
is the current version. It is the current version. As far as my knowledge goes, it is the current version.
Okay.
So basically, HL7 is the current version, but still, if you see that, HL7 still does not emphasize anything on security. Like to have HTTP and HTTPS, right? There is a secure version of HTTP, but HL7 does not mandate anything, right? It optionally suggests that we can use something like a TLS protocol, right? Okay. So there is one more question. What is the basic difference between edge and fog computing to medical use case? Means use case does not matter, but there is a small difference that means people actually use edge and fog both in the same context. But I differentiate edge and fog with one particular functionality. Basically, edge fog can operate as a mini cloud. So it can means it can pool together resources. It can pool together resources from multiple fog nodes and provide as a computing and storage ecosystem for the devices closer to it, right? Edge computing basically is trying to provide only the computing facility closer to the device. This is what could be a small difference between edge and fog.
I think this question is to a personal chat, right, sir, to you?
Yes,
Because I
yes, yes.
cannot. Yeah.
No. Yes, yes. It is a personal chat. I did not
Okay.
differentiate. I just
Okay.
spoke.
Yeah. One more question is there: can smart devices can be hacked at the level of firmware, like OS memory corruption vulnerability?
Yes, yes, that is what I am talking about. Yes, they can be hacked at the level of firmware. That is how lot of attacks, that are complex attacks, are targeted mainly at the hardware and firmware level. Yes, to be precise, yes, they can be done.
Yes. Any other questions, participants? No. Okay. Okay. Thank you. With this, I thank you once again, Rakesh sir, for accepting our invitation and delivering such a nice talk to our participants. Thank you once again.
Thank you, one and all. Thank you, Sanjit, for inviting me. Thank you, participants, for patiently listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.